Welcome back to the part 2 of this travel trailer renovation. So as you can see, he started to take everything out. That's the first step with these trailers because you always have to figure out what you're fighting. So with this trailer, we realized it wasn't as bad as our last trailer. If you haven't seen our last trailer, go ahead and click the video above. You can see how that project went. That was a headache. But this one, it had a leak, but the previous owners repaired it. They just kind of like skimped on some of the work. So they did fix and repair some of the wood, and then some wet spots they kind of just left as is. So we had to take care of that. But it was, again, a lot easier than the last trailer, so I can't even really complain. Here you can see that wood is completely soaked. So they sealed whatever was leaking, but they left the wet wood in the ceiling. Yikes, never do that. So yeah, we had to take care of that. But again, it wasn't that bad. In our last trailer, I decided to epoxy the countertops because I had a look I was going for. With this trailer, I actually decided to take out the countertops and the bathroom sink and to replace them with a butcher block look. So yeah, we had to tear some stuff up. I would say the biggest difference with this trailer and the last is, again, we didn't have a lot of water damage, but it seems like they had a roach infestation. So there was borax everywhere. I guess that was their way of handling it. But while it wasn't like you can't see them running all over the place necessarily, we had to bomb like quite a few times just to be sure that they were completely gone. So now everything is nice and clean, but it took a little minute to get there. I feel like every video I do, there is some point where I'm like, don't do something. This is one. I caught myself cleaning these cushions and completely soaking them in the tub. Worst decision ever. Do not do that. It took almost 2 weeks for these cushions to completely dry out. And that was with like 8 different drying methods happening like at the same time to keep them from molding. I don't even know what I recommend, but don't do it. Like, don't completely submerge them. I would just say maybe surface clean them, but yeah. So when it comes to RVs, the yellow tinted off-white sinks bother me. They just do. And I knew that I wanted to use white and some other color for this trailer, so I knew that was gonna clash and it was gonna be a problem. So for this trailer, I decided to try out the Rust-Oleum marine paint that I heard about refinishing tubs and sinks with. Honestly, it's not made for tubs in general, but because RVs are typically not used like heavy duty like a house would, I decided to try it out. It actually turned out amazing in my opinion. It was super cheap and it was way easier than an epoxy refinish that you get. So for me, I recommend it. I saw a couple videos suggesting it, followed the directions, did it. So you can use your own discretion, but for me, I think it's great for smaller projects. And in terms of material, I used the roller and a paintbrush, but honestly, I preferred the way that the paintbrush left the surface. I didn't care too much for the roller, so that's just my opinion. This stuff is very forgiving. You have to wait 24 hours between coats, so I did have to do that, but it's kind of like epoxy in that it self-levels, so you do need to be careful, but it will self-level. It looks weird in the moment, but when you come back, it kind of levels out. So here you can see the tub before, which is extremely yellow. And then you can see the after. This is still wet, one coat, but you can still see a difference already. So way better than an epoxy kit that I tried last time. That was horrible, but this came out way better. So here I'm just removing the RV wallpaper, which is a little different from a wallpaper that you find in the home. That stuff is tough. But if you want to see the full process, watch my previous travel trailer video. It's more in depth. This is the progress. So we were doing like 18 different projects at one time. Right now he's working, I'm working, but yeah, when you do these travel trailer renovations, it gets messy and it looks rough, but it all turns out great in the end. I got my countertops from Lowe's and I got the 3/4 panel boards, but honestly, I wish I could have got the 1-inch boards. I just had a hard time finding them. I feel like they would have been just a tad bit more secure. 3/4 works, but I recommend 1-inch for like countertops. But it's an RV, it's not a lot of space, so it worked out fine. Another recommendation is oil-based paint. This is my second trailer, the second time I've done latex, the last time I'll ever do latex. Oil-based paint for trailers. End of story. That's it. Here, I have nothing special to say. No tips, no tricks, no do's, no don'ts. Just watch me struggling to put this wallpaper up. Wallpaper is the bane of my existence next to painting. I know, it's weird. I hate them, but they just make everything look good, so I have to tolerate it. Here, I was listening to Mary J. Blige and I got inspired, so that's it. Okay, here's something that this video has that the last one didn't because I lost the footage. So I did decide to epoxy the kitchen table, the dinner table, whatever. So here I'm just putting a base coat on the table. Yeah, creatively, you see that. And I wanted to have a black marble table. So instead of doing a white marble, I wanted to have a black marble. And you'll just see the process here. Now, one of the reasons I did a black marble table is because, as you can see, my curing agent turned orange because it was old. Does not mean that it will not work. It just means that if I had to try to do like a white table, it would have been orange because of the pigment. So I just decided to do a black epoxy table. Again, epoxy still works, but any lighter colors would have like an orange tinge. So yeah, you kind of make the discretion on what color you want to go with that. The thing that you need to do when it comes to tables is to outline them or border them with tape to keep the epoxy in place until you're ready for it to flow down. So that's what I did here. You have to mix the epoxy in a container. So I use the larger container to mix all of the epoxy, and then I use a smaller container for a small white epoxy that I was going to do. So yes, it didn't really turn orange because of it wasn't a lot, but if I would have tried to do the whole table white, then you probably would have saw like an orange tinge. So here the steps are: you need to mix both the curing agent and the whatever other agent. It always comes in two parts. Mix them together, and for this particular brand, it was for 5 minutes. And then you can mix in other colors if you want to, but for me, because I already had the table black as a base, I just used clear, and then I added colors on top of that. I'm just giving the gist of how this works. You can kind of see the specifics that I do, but I'll give a separate video with play-by-play, a more thorough way to explain how to epoxy a table. But for this, I just wanted to give a kind of thorough, well, base level thorough quick review of how I did it. The most important thing to remember with epoxy is to make sure you have enough. Make sure you spread it out evenly. It will self-level, but you still want to spread it out evenly, and you have to get rid of bubbles. So I showed the 91% alcohol earlier. That's what I use to get rid of bubbles. You can use heat as well, but for me, the 91% alcohol is just a little bit easier. So I also mix in pigments that I have from previous projects. So you saw the pearl and the charcoal, and I'll use those mix with the alcohol to, one, burst bubbles, but two, add like little specks of color to it. So you can kind of see right there, I added like a light pearl spritz, and then I used the white epoxy to start making the marbling. So you can use all types of colors. Again, I just had this stuff on hand, but you can order quite literally any colors that you want to. You can find them on Amazon, or you can go to special epoxy makers, which is where I got some of my stuff from. But yeah, there's a million ways you can do this, but you see me here, I'm just free-handing it. There is no plan, I am winging it, but you'll see how it turns out. Rolling around the edges just ensures that as the epoxy is flowing over the edge, it flows over evenly. So you have to kind of roll to make sure that it flows evenly, and then it'll continue to fall on its own. Here, I chose a color for my floors. You can see this dark oak here, and once he started to put it down, I was like, nope, I hate it. So he actually had to run to Home Depot, I think, at like 10 o'clock at night and go get a different color of floors. But you know, sometimes these things happen. You just know what you want, and that dark oak was not it. You can see here that this brown is much better. So with our last trailer, we actually went ahead and painted the outside like the week after I posted my video. I just didn't show it. Here, we wanted to show you how he paints the outside of the trailer. So it wasn't bad initially, it just needed to be cleaned up, and so you can kind of see how that happened here. From here on out, it's just the details. Little this, little that, just kind of putting everything together. As you can see, everything is starting to come together. I picked the colors. I kind of figured out the vision that I wanted to fulfill in this trailer. So if you're interested in seeing how everything turned out, you know what to do. Subscribe.